Hi, this is Clark on Temptress. I just bought myself a new toy. I'm pretty happy with it, and I want to tell you all about this new hand meter by Fluke, at least new to me, that is really very cheap. Honestly, I thought I was done doing battery reviews, except I've got, well, one friend in particular in Lupron that bought a whole bunch of Li Time batteries, and he really wants to see what's inside but doesn't want to tear his apart. So I'm constantly getting, hey Clark, when are you going to review an Li Time? From what I've heard about the company, it's a good company. So I kind of always said if they ever came to me asking me to review a battery, I'd probably say yes. I'm just getting ready to go to Europe, and they got it in under the wire. So they sent me this, and I'll be doing a review on it really soon. That's not today's video. It's a really interesting battery. It will start outboard motors, apparently, big ones even, as well as some other really cool features. So we're going to review this real soon. But to review the battery properly, I had to have a clip-on multimeter. Now, I only have the one right now. I have the Kline that I talked about before, the Kline CL800. Like it fine. It's not the greatest thing in the world. In my review, I talk about how it always comes up in AC mode and you constantly have to switch it to DC mode because it's really set up for air conditioner guys. Well, I found this Fluke, and I'm so happy with this. This is now my favorite meter. Also, it's not terribly expensive. Now, let's just talk about meters real quick on the outside, and then we'll get into it. There's basically two kinds of handheld meters. There's this kind. This is my bench meter. I don't recommend this one for a boat at all. It'd be too touchy, and it's just too accurate and too expensive for your needs on a boat. But the idea is, here's the meter. It has probes, and that's about all it is. You have to put all power through the probes. These clip-on meters have probes, so if you wanted to check voltage or resistance, you use the probes. But without the probes, it's still useful for current. And you clip this around the wire. If this were the wire I wanted to know about, like that, and the display will tell me what's going through that wire in amps, either in AC or DC. Now, not all these clip-on meters go to DC, and not all these meters are the same. Mostly I'm reviewing, because I've only owned this like a week, but I've been playing with it. I really like it. But mostly I'm reviewing its quality based on this word right here, Fluke. If you know anything about meters, they kind of are known as making some of the best meters around. I have a Fluke on the boat that I also reviewed. It's the Fluke 17B Plus. And I'll put a little display of that up, of course. I really like that meter. So that meter and the clip-on Kline are the only two I use on the boat. Honestly, I grab the Kline more often, it seems. But that day is over, because this is now my favorite meter all around for a boat. Now the Kline, when I bought it, was like 75, 78 bucks, something like that. And at that price, damn good little meter, you know. The price of everything right after that review just went up. That was kind of like when that whole post-COVID inflation thing really kicked in. But now, anyway, now it's 120 bucks. And at 120 bucks, it's just not worth the savings over this one. This one's only $140. And by the way, the Fluke 17B right now is $160. Very manageable amounts of money when you consider they're Flukes. Most all Flukes are just god-awful expensive. Look it up. If you're doing this professionally, you just don't want to deal with problems ever because that causes confusion and makes it hard to solve a problem. So it's worth getting the best. But if you're a Chinese engineer or technician, you just might not have the budget for Flukes. And Fluke knows this, and Fluke would like to sell meters to them. So they have special models. And these special models are these two for the Asian market. And there's nothing wrong with them as far as I can tell. I'm sure they're probably the exact same boards as other Fluke meters. You guys that know more about meters can comment on that. But it's just a great meter and a tremendous price for it. I've owned some Flukes in the past and they always hold up real well for a long time in the adverse conditions of the boat. I always trust what they say over other meters that I might own at the same time. I just really like Fluke meters. And I tell you, you pull one of these out and other guys around go, ooh, he must know what he's doing. He's got a Fluke meter. So there's that, you know. Anyway, let's just play with this a little bit so we can see what it does for us. Like I said, it's got a couple features here. Now, there's not much on the dial, and most Flukes don't have a lot on the dial, it seems. I've got this little roller thing, and the positions are volts AC, which is a V with a little tilde over it, volts DC, a V with a little dash and dot line over top, then ohms, amps AC, and then amps DC. On the front, there's just two buttons, 0 and hold. 0 will make the meter go right back to 0. If you look right now, it's saying 0.1 amps. If I hit 0, it goes to 0. It's always good as soon as you flip it right in, just make it part of what your thumb does is hit the 0 to clear it right out. But let's start at the beginning. Let's see. Oh, I've got an inverter all plugged in here for later, so let me turn that on. It doesn't really zero out here on AC. It's reading 0.1 amps. And honestly, that just doesn't matter for how far we're going. It's got these little safety caps on it that all meters seem to have, or all good meters seem to have. These have to be on to be in compliance for really high voltage work, but I take them off because I usually do low voltage work. Anyway, let's do this. Volts AC, and it says that this is putting out 109.5 volts. This says it's putting out 112 volts. I know this is not an RMS meter. I'm not going to go into what root mean squares in depth, but what it boils down to is your AC numbers will always be off by a bit. This averages and that does something else. You're just not, if you're a boat guy or a camper guy, you're just not going to mess with AC that much. It's more like, yeah, it's over 100 volts. I probably have pretty good power coming in from the mains. It's not like you have to really fiddle with it. Okay, let's put it in DC mode. I'll pop the button again. We'll go to this battery. And this battery is currently at 13.2 volts. Perfectly reasonable for a lithium iron phosphate battery to be at. Let's go to ohms. Testing the resistance. There's two features here. One is a little buzzer that'll happen when you make connectivity. And what that's for is if you had a long circuit, like this wire went out through a bunch of walls and came back someplace else, I could say, is that the wire I'm thinking about? Oh yeah, it beeps, same wire. But it's basically just saying the resistance is really low. And I'm going to grab a regular resistor here. This is what is this? A 0.5 ohm resistor. It takes it a while to settle in, and it says 0.5, then it said 0.4 ohms. That's pretty close, and it's a Chinese resistor. I wouldn't guarantee it's right on. Amps. Amps AC I can't easily do right now, because when you measure amps, like this is a wire that goes to this little space heater I'll use for big power in a minute. You might think, oh, well, here's my wire. There we go. What is it? Well, let's do it just for an example. 0. Forgive me for turning that right off. It's still hot here in Florida. It reads 0 with a big load on. That's because whatever this is reading is the net of what's going through. And even though it's AC and they're going back and forth, they're always opposite each other. These two wires are going this way, this way, this way, this way. But at any given time, this plus this is 0 because it's the whole circuit. Let's go to DC. So DC, let me hit the 0 button. I'm going to turn this battery charger, or bench supply that I'm using as a charger on. And this is the charging wire coming from it. It's putting out, according to that, 4.99 amps. And according to this, negative 0.49. If I flip it around, it will be, well, positive, something just changed while I did that. So positive 0.47. And if I flip it around, negative 0.48. They're really, really close. Negative and positive amps, generally you're not going to care a lot. You kind of don't want to know what's going through it. If you really want to know the direction, it's the direction of the magnetic field going around through this thing. So if you flip it around, you get the opposite reading. What I'm kind of saying is don't bother. But to illustrate my earlier point, let me grab the negative wire, which of course also has 4.8 amps, because the amps are always the same everywhere in the circuit. They travel round and round. If I grab in the right direction both of these wires and clip them, and I didn't do it in the right direction, if I grab them so that they're both in the same direction and clip them, I get zero amps, because they cancel out each other. The power is going that way through this wire and that way through this wire, so the net effect is always 0 amps. That's why you have to separate the wires to be able to use one of these meters. While I'm here, let me just show you one more little thing that's kind of cute. If you ever want really high resolution, and this meter only goes to a 1/10 of an amp, you can do this trick. So I get 5 amps currently, which is correct according to that. If I take the wire and I go through it twice, I get 10 amps. Because, as again I said, it's the additive of everything going through that clamp. The magnetic field is twice as strong because I'm creating like a coil. If I do it again, I get 15, and I'll do it one more time, and I'm getting 20. So I go 4 wires going through here, 20.1. I can divide the 20.1 by 4, and then I get a number that's more accurate. Brings it up into where this device is just plain more accurate. It's not really good at the really low end. Let's talk about limits. The ohm, the resistance are adequate. I don't remember how high of a resistance it can measure, but it's way higher than you're ever going to need on a boat or a camper. Voltage-wise, it's good up to 600 volts, which is way more than I want to get near. And amp-wise, it's good up to 200 amps. It's possible you might want to read more than 200 amps going through something big. Like if you had some really heavy cable going to an inverter, 200 amps at 12 volts is like, it's less than 3 kilowatts. So it's possible you'd go off the limit of this. But how often are you using your inverter right at the limit? So I think it's enough meter for everybody. Oh, that's the final thing I did want to do, is let's turn this heater on. Actually, let's clip this on here first. So I got it set for DC amps. 0 it. Reading 0. Turn the heater on. Heater's getting its power through the inverter. The inverter's getting its power from the battery. And the battery, of course, is giving the power through this cable. So 57, 58, 61, 62, 65. Obviously, our device here ramps itself up. 73 amps. That'd be a good number to know if you're debugging something. How much power is coming out of that? If this were the alternator on your engine and you want to know, is this putting out good power? I don't think the batteries are charging right. Clip right onto the big wire coming out of the alternator, you'd get the same thing exactly. It would tell you exactly how many amps are coming out of that alternator. Anyway, it's going to be a short video. Just wanted to show you my new toy and how much I like it. I highly recommend, if you don't have a meter, this would be the meter I would buy right now. Does most everything. It's really small, easy to carry around. I think I'd get a little case for it, just because boats and splash and dinghy and all that. Also the leads, if you're picky about test leads, these are perfectly adequate. They'll work, but there are better test leads in the world that feel better to your hands and don't kind of kink up like this thing has. But otherwise, for the money, this is a tremendous deal. Get one. I'll put a link to it down below. If you choose to get it down below off my link, I'll probably get $1 or $2. I'd appreciate that. And I'll put it on my Amazon store. So the other link that goes to all the Amazon stuff, it'll be there. It would be nice if you did that, because I make a few bucks, like I say, but that's not why I do it. Why I do it is I get 100 comments. Hey, what was that meter? Hey, where do I get that meter? That kind of thing. So it just makes it easier for everybody. But shop around. If you find it on eBay cheaper, hell, buy it on eBay. If you find it at a local electronics store, well, I don't think you will, because I'm not sure that they can legally be sold in the US. But anyway, great meter. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.